Gregg's Gardens are inspired by the life of Gregg Snyder, who had a vision for a better Warren. We want to tell you about the idea to create a garden district in Warren, Ohio. But first, we want to tell you why we felt it was necessary and a thing or two about what we think it'll do for Warren. A big motivator for us were the results of a recent internet survey. One question stood out in particular. When reading the statement, Warren presents the image of a prosperous and growing community, a staggering 90% of Warren residents disagreed with that statement, and 2/3 of them strongly disagreed. It's going to be very hard to impress new investors if the current residents feel this way. Imagine if Apple Computer found out that all of their customers had the same kind of impression about their products. They would drop everything else and immediately address this problem because the survival of the company would be at stake. No less of an effort is called for in Warren. The survey also allowed for open-ended responses from the residents to get more specific about their feelings. And it was clear that their concerns for the city revolve around 4 key areas. First is the residual effects of the Rust Belt economy. Second, the general deterioration, especially in the streets. The third is blight, particularly the number of vacant and dilapidated houses. And finally, crime, illustrated here by a photo of one of the recently closed health spas. Progress has been made in the city in all these areas over the past year or so. But fixing the roads and tearing down the houses is not enough. We also need something that can point the way forward, that make residents feel optimistic about the future, and can add a spark of creativity to the process of revitalizing the city. So we began looking for a project that would effectively address some of these issues. What's the right kind of project? Well, we started by listing 3 key criteria that we felt any project had to have. The first was that it had to be reasonably priced and cost-effective, and something that could be scaled, something we could try on a small level to begin, and if it was effective, scale up to something large enough to have a real impact. Second was the need to have broad community support. Anything transformative is going to touch most people in the city, if not everyone in the city, and we needed that broad support. And the third, and perhaps most important, was whatever the project was, it had to directly challenge the current image of Warren and replace it with something new. We quickly settled on blight as an issue that we felt we should focus on, in part because it affects so many other aspects of life in our city. A blighted community is one that makes it easier for criminals to operate. It requires a huge amount of economic resources to address, and it also is a huge impediment to economic development. There was also a lot of data to support the possibilities that one could achieve by addressing blight. Here cited on this page is a study done by Michigan State University about the city of Flint, Michigan, one that is demographically very similar to Warren. A few years ago, Flint invested $3.5 million in removing blighted properties from the community and measured the results and found that it lifted the value of all the other residential property in the city by over $112 million, more than a 3,100% return on investment. Blight is even a mental health issue, as illustrated in a study that we found from the University of Pennsylvania Medical School. By greening a neighborhood that has been blighted, it lowers crime rate, reduces stress, and improves the general overall health of the community. Once we decided blight was the issue to attack, we fairly quickly settled on replacing vacant, weedy lots with beautiful wildflower and native plant gardens. We picked wildflowers for several key reasons. First, they were environmentally friendly, requiring no pesticides, chemicals, don't have to be watered, helpful in water runoff and other environmental issues. Aesthetically, most people find wildflowers beautiful. They offer something for the eye year-round. They bring color to a dark palette, and they attract butterflies and other wildlife that people enjoy seeing. And perhaps most important for the project itself were the financial reasons. These vacant lots require constant maintenance, mowing that is undertaken by either the city, the county, or the neighbors, none of whom are properly funded to do it. And by eliminating them, we raise the property value and lower the overall cost of maintaining the area. The leverage in the process comes from what upgrading the neighborhood can do for the value of everything around it. We know from the Michigan State study that one blighted house drags down the value of all the houses around it for distances up to 1,500 feet for each house. Multiple vacant houses and lots have a multiplier effect. So if you look at some of the older neighborhoods in Warren, you see three basic categories of homes. The ideal illustrated on the left, which is an owner-occupied home that's well maintained, where the owner has pride. On the right, you find the other end of the spectrum, things that are hopeless, that where the deterioration is already so extreme that they can't be economically renovated in any way. They're usually already abandoned, vacant in some way, not maintained, and they're a magnet for crime. Where we can really do some good are the houses in the middle. And in Warren, it's possible to buy a perfectly livable home for as little as $10,000, sometimes actually even less. And those homes exhibit qualities from both of the other categories. They're very often rentals. They may not be maintained to the level that everyone would like, and the residents tend to be transient. We believe we can improve the circumstances for those homes in the middle category dramatically. Here's a simple illustration of how we think that's possible. In the two illustrations at the top and the bottom, the house in the middle is the same house. But imagine the difference if you were a potential purchaser of that home and you looked at the one at the top and found that home situated between a blighted, rundown house in need of demolition, and on the other side, an already vacant, trash-filled lot. Despite the fact that the home may be extremely inexpensive and could be fixed up for a little bit of money, you're still going to have something that's sandwiched in between two places you don't want to spend any time. The opportunity doesn't look so great. But that exact same house in the lower frame, now positioned in between a renovated, well-maintained home and a beautiful wildflower garden on the other lot, becomes a very different proposition. This is something someone might be willing to invest some time and money in and can see a positive future for. Referring back to the characteristics we were looking for in the ideal project, you'll recall that we felt that having broad bases support was critical to any success, and so we began to build partnerships that could achieve that goal. The first partnership was between Warren Expressed, which provided the ongoing marketing, fundraising, and the volunteers for the project, married with Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership, who brought expertise, structure, and a 501c3 status to the proposition. Once that was established, we went about building a broader base of support through various established governmental organizations. The City of Warren was very helpful and positive about the idea from the beginning. Mayor Franklin recorded a YouTube video helping us fundraise. The Warren Municipal Courts, in an agreement with TNP, provides labor for the project using community service requirements for non-felon clients of the court. Most of the properties that we are converting from vacant lots to gardens are provided by the Trumbull County Land Bank, and Treasurer Sam Lamancusa has been invaluable in the process. The Trumbull County Planning Commission has helped us modify the demolition specs so that we can skip the weed killing portion of the process, turning a lot to a garden. And finally, we're now working with students at Warren Harding High School to help get them involved in the project and bring the next generation into it. We sought and we were given great support from the Warren business community and from several nonprofit organizations and foundations that are actively involved in creating a better future for the city. The idea of wildflower gardens has strong emotional appeal across a broad spectrum of people, and that resulted in broad support of the project from individuals as well. More than 200 people contributed over $20,000 to the first phase of Gregg's Gardens. Interestingly, 2/3 of the donors and half of the money came from people who don't live in Warren anymore. These were former residents, people who grew up here and remember the city in its heyday and want to see it return to its former glory. We had 6 businesses, 3 civic organizations, 3 Warren G. Harding graduating classes contributed $5,000, civic organizations, and about a dozen tireless volunteers. We used the money we raised to convert 20 vacant lots on Atlantic Street and 2 additional lots on Youngstown Road to gardens. The gardens we planted in the fall of 2012 will forever change Atlantic Street and also cast this positive glow that we referred to before on 20 vacant houses that are now in the land bank and available for investors who are beginning to see the neighborhood turn around. They will forever change the character of Atlantic Street, but they will also be the anchor for the garden district that we have in mind for the future. The reviews for the project have been fabulous. Many of you know who Jim Rokakis is. He's been featured on 60 Minutes and CNN. He's the former Cuyahoga County Treasurer and is considered to be the godfather of land bank legislation, which is transforming many Ohio counties. He's a national expert on urban land reuse, and he often cites Gregg's Gardens as being a particularly creative way to address urban problems. We've built a strong grassroots following for Gregg's Gardens using social media and the web. We've gotten enthusiastic coverage from the Warren Tribune and the Youngstown Vindicator, plus several Youngstown TV stations. And finally, a nationally known expert on wildflowers and native grasses who's written several books, came to Warren last summer and shot several hours worth of video for an upcoming DVD series on creative uses of those plants for urban renewal. So our next task is now to take the expertise and the knowledge that we gained from our year 1 experience and expand it in a way that can benefit the entire community of Warren. This led us to develop the concept of a garden district, a concentration of Gregg's Gardens dense enough to transform an entire part of the city, to make a neighborhood so beautiful that people would want to come and visit it, a neighborhood so promising that people would want to invest in it, a place where people would want to live. Warren is very lucky to have just such a neighborhood filled with lovely old homes, a very short walk from downtown Warren, a 25 square block area filled with beautiful old homes filled with potential. Cleveland doesn't have a neighborhood like this. Youngstown doesn't have a neighborhood like this. It's unique to Warren. Creating a garden district filled with Gregg's Gardens is the first step in unlocking this neighborhood's full potential, making it a highly desirable place to live and visit. Just how big a task is it? Well, many local people think of this neighborhood as a lost cause already. And truth be told, it does have big issues. By the time the city uses its Moving Ohio Forward money to demolish homes in the city, there may be up to 150 vacant lots in this 25 square block area. But of the occupied houses, there's reason for hope. Trumbull Neighborhood Partnership has surveyed every single property in the area and rated each of them on an A to F scale. Many of you know the German Village neighborhood in Columbus. 40 years ago, it was a derelict, dangerous neighborhood. Now it's one of the most desirable neighborhoods in the city in which to live. Warren is starting from a much better base. Our goal in 2013 is to raise $50,000, with which we believe we can transform between 100 and 150 vacant lots into beautiful wildflower and native plant gardens. $50,000 is less than the cost of a decent 3-bedroom home in Warren. With that amount of money, we can transform an entire part of the city. Using the experience and knowledge from Phase 1 of Gregg's Gardens, we will do this by considerably lowering our per-garden cost. We know of no other project, either real or imagined, in the city that has the potential to have this transformative effect regardless of the budget. We'll go back to the map just for a moment. The Warren Garden District will not only stabilize Warren's oldest residential neighborhood, which sits right in the heart of the city, but it will cast a positive glow on the downtown area immediately to its south. In addition, it will act as a barrier to the creeping blight to the west, which threatens to impinge upon the historic Perkins neighborhood. On the east, and particularly the northeast corner, it will serve as a beautiful front yard to Warren G. Harding High School. And on the north, it has the potential to even spark interest in redevelopment of the former industrial neighborhood. We have a 3-year plan, and we're now beginning the middle third of the project, and we need your support. These gardens can be an attraction in their own right, For example, tens of thousands of people go every year to Burton, Ohio to eat pancakes in the firehouse. We believe that if Warren had a garden district with 150 beautiful gardens, that people would come from all over the area to see them when they bloomed. And when they did, they'd stop for a cup of coffee or lunch or maybe even spend an evening. If we achieve our goals, what will it say about the city and the people who live here? Well, we think it will say that we are resourceful, creative, and that we have a vision for the future, that we haven't given up on our hometown. We think it'll say these are the kind of people that other people want to do business with, a place they'll want to invest and live and raise their own families. Please join us in making the Garden District in Warren a reality. For anyone viewing this who wants to learn more about the project and maybe wants to contribute to the cause, all the information you need is right here. Thank you.